being stressed out and unsure about how I was going to survive this career due to extreme burnout and exhaustion. No. But the true problem is not burnout, it's entrapment. When we're in our day-to-day lives of working hard and grinding, we don't even notice the things that we spend money on. Boom, 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 boom. As a person, as an individual, you can only control the things that you can control. And the number one thing you can control is your financial strategy.
All right, welcome to the Investing RN podcast. I'm here as usual with Josh Condato. I'm Colin, and we're joined today by Angel Mathis, all the way from New Zealand, all the way a day ahead of us, which we just found out. Josh and I just learned how time works, and we're excited to have you. And yeah, sounds like there's a lot to get into between your running hundreds of miles for no reason and sailing. The sailing I can get behind. I don't know about the running, and then we'll talk about some nursing too, I guess. But yeah, welcome.
Thank you. I am so happy to finally be putting this together. I know we've tried for a while, since summertime for you. It's summer for me now in New Zealand, but since summertime when I was walking across my Montana and Wyoming. And so I'm really glad to be connecting with you. While I was on that walk, I was able to listen to some of your podcasts then, and I am a fan. I am a fan of Josh and Colin.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot.
Yeah, well, all right. So there's a lot to get into here. I guess I'm more interested in like the walking across Montana and the sailing, but let's talk about nursing first, since that's what we're here for. So yeah, tell us about your nursing journey.
Sure thing. I'm more interested in walking across Montana and sailing as well. So I'm happy to talk about that. But I've been a nurse for 20 plus years, a nurse practitioner for 15 plus years. And I have been through the gamut of feelings and emotions with nursing. And it has gone from being relieved to become a nurse, to break some generational poverty cycles, to being stressed out and unsure about how I was going to survive this career due to extreme burnout and exhaustion, to retiring early at 35 years old. And eventually going back to nursing 5 years later as a very part-time nurse practitioner to keep my licenses active. So that's my nursing journey in a nutshell.
So I feel like everybody listening is going to be somewhere in that span, that somewhere in that cycle. So yeah, I know we usually ask this at the end of the podcast, but what would you have done differently, I guess, to avoid some of the burnout? Maybe, what would you have done differently in preparation for what you now know would have been the future?
Well, let's see. What would I have done differently? The thing here, and the thing that I've learned, is that burnout is a result of the type of environment we're put into. So we focus all of our energy on relieving burnout, but the true problem is not burnout, it's entrapment. And so entrapment is the sense of feeling trapped in a situation that you cannot control. And for me, I've always been really, really nerdy about money, and about, like, I can remember when I was a kid, like counting my cents, like how many cents do I have? And so that came into, for me, my advantage, my huge advantage, because from the time I became a nurse, I was learning these techniques. And so the thing that I would do I wouldn't do anything differently. I basically was able to work in a system that is built to commodify the labor of nurses. And I did that, and I played that game. But at the same time, I cashed out when I was 35. And now I'm able to be work optional. And so even though that was hard, I don't regret any of it. And so that's my long answer to your question of what would I do differently? I wouldn't do it differently. I feel like I threaded the needle, and I got very lucky because I was nerdy about money. And so what I would want people to know leaving this is anybody can be nerdy about money, but some people are going to enjoy it less because they don't enjoy the topic as much as I do.
So even with that, because I definitely agree, like the entrapment thing is 100% what causes that burnout feeling, because you feel stuck. And in your case, it sounds like financially you were very literate financially, and you had all the plans in place to avoid feeling that entrapment, but you still felt burnt out. So what do you think it was that contributed to that? Just the healthcare system in general, or what?
Right. And so when I think that what we know about the ways to resolve entrapment is you create better systems, you create more autonomy, and you create a pathway for escape. And so those three things are the things that you can do to relieve entrapment. And so for me, I created my pathway for escape, which also means that now I would have a job that is work optional, and I can do it when I want, if I want, and make my career work for me in that way. So I have created that pathway to escape.
So I guess what would be like a couple simple examples, like first steps for somebody that's maybe starting off or maybe starting to feel that trapped feeling?
Yeah. So one is that's such a great question because, of course, it's a huge question too, right? Um, and so a person who is in this entrapment phase, which most nurses are going to be at some stage. That's why we see between 1 in 3 and 1 in 5 nurses reporting right now that they are going to leave the profession within 5 years. This is why we see that statistic. And so when people are getting started on this journey, people tell us that the way to resolve entrapment is to keep doing more, like keep giving more, try to change the system, be a great advocate. But that's wrong because as a person, as an individual, you can only control the things that you can control. And the number one thing you can control is your financial strategy. So when you're putting into place your financial strategy, what I want nurses to know is that there's two pathways. So nurses who are getting started out, and I know you two know this because I've heard you talk about it in your podcast, but I'm going to say it here too, which is there's two pathways to financial independence. There's the cash flow pathway that you have to set up, and that gives you short-term financial independence. And then there's the investment pathway that you have to set up that sets you up for long-term financial independence. And these two things morph together at the same time. We're not just focusing on one and we're not just focusing on the other, like back to back. We're focusing on them at the same time. And that becomes a mess, a jarbled mess in our heads a lot of times. And so that's why it really helps to plug into a system where you can naturally do all of these things at the same time and get your short-term financial independence set up while not sacrificing your long-term financial independence.
What would you say are some great ways to get some cash flow on this side? Because or do you recommend maybe picking up a few extra shifts if you need to, or just what if you had to start over right now looking for some additional cash flow? How would you look for it?
Well, I'll tell you what I did because I think a lot of people think of cash flow in one sense, which is bringing in income from side hustles and jobs and real estate and dividend investments and fill in the blank, right? And so those are all fine strategies, and they might be things that you use sometimes and not other times. But what I did when I stopped working at 35 is I had basically created my accounts so that I had set up my accounts so that I could pay myself from my accounts. So I'm not technically bringing in new money at that time. I've saved so much that I'm now able to cash flow myself out. Does that make sense? Basically, I have savings. I have a huge savings that I know exactly how much I need to last me a certain amount of time. And I'm basically cash flowing that through my accounts. And so that's what I did. That's how I was able to, because I had set up that short term, that was my plan for short term financial independence. And at the same time, I'm saving into my investments through that and watching my investments grow while not touching those.
So your strategy was saving and then figuring out some sort of investment strategy is what it sounds like. Rather than starting a side hustle, it was work really hard, save really hard, and then figure out how you can get your money to work for you after the fact. Is that correct in saying?
That is a way. That's a way of saying it. Yeah.
Okay.
I
Not
don't
exactly.
agree.
Okay.
I think here's the thing. Work really hard, save really hard. Yes. At the same time, I could have done so much better. I was like living in Seattle in the center of the city, like eating out all the time, spending tons of money. I wasn't really saving really hard. I could have done so much better. Um, but yes, that's a way of looking at it, because at the same time, I set myself up for that. And that's what I want people to know. And I think you guys know that, right? Like you don't have to sacrifice your happiness in order to set yourself up across the long term. You just
Right.
have to know how money works and where to put it.
And I think it's just kind of setting up, realizing what you actually want. And you might even have to ask yourself that same thing multiple times before you figure out what you truly want. Like some people actually do want more things, but some people want to be able to leave nursing as fast as possible. And you can have whatever you want. You just can't have everything you want.
Well, and I think it's nice to hear too that you were going out and doing the like going to dinners and living in a nice place, like just because I think we've heard some people. Actually, it's Josh and Jen's cousin. They were very strict with how they lived their life when they were starting their investment journey, and full transparency, that's just not us. I mean, we are not that disciplined when it comes to saving and just like cutting the fat and all that. So to hear that you could do this and still achieve retirement by the age of 35 is definitely encouraging, more so than like, yeah, I was like living in a room with 10 people and like not eating out, eating ramen and everything. So it's more relatable and it's like more encouraging that way. So that's cool to hear.
You know what? You're both reading my mind, but in different ways, because part of me, I am a very like I love living a simple lifestyle, and but I also it's easy to like ebb and flow between simple and expensive. And I'm going to share something with you that I learned after I stopped working, that surprised me, which was when I stopped working, I spent so much less money because I didn't feel like a sense of needing to treat myself, or I had it just felt different. It just felt different, and I surprised myself with that too. So when I stopped working at 35, I actually didn't have the intention to retire. I had the intention to go and walk the Pacific Crest Trail, which is about a 5-month walk, and then to go and learn Spanish in South America. 1 year roundabouts. Now, after a year came and went, I was doing all of those things. I found I actually had enough money to do it for another year, and then another year, and then another year. And so it's interesting. When we're in our day to day lives of working hard and grinding, we don't even notice the things that we spend money on a lot of times. I was surprised by it myself.
Yeah, well, the Pacific Crest Trail, that's
I'm
like,
gonna try that out. That
yeah.
sounds that sounds great.
No, it doesn't work for you, Josh. You got a wife and 4 kids. There's
They
nothing
could
simple.
they could do the trail also.
They-
No. That's
Can
right.
you push
I
a
saw
stroller on the
only
trail?
Pacific Crest
I
Trail.
know your family, Josh. That is not happening.
It's not for everyone.
You and
We'll
like 2 of
hire
your
the
kids could do it.
donkeys to walk
Yeah.
us.
Yeah, do they have like Cadillac style 4-wheelers that can like drive the trail for you?
No, that I
Yeah.
didn't
Well,
see.
so I think so. We've interviewed quite a few people at this point, and that's the first time we've heard any sort of a story like that. And I'm glad you brought it up because you might not need as much money as you think you might need to actually to take a step back. Some people might be ready to take a step back now, but they don't feel like they have enough. So that's a great example of try it out, because nursing is such a great field. You can always come back if you need to.
And that is so huge for us as nurses. That, if anything, gives us confidence. It's the flexibility of our career. That's one of the reasons why I didn't feel completely terrified to do this, because I knew if it hit the fan, I would just get a job. And to speak to that, so after 5 years, my license was about ready to expire. And so I really had to make the decision, will I let my license expire because I didn't have practice hours? Because back then I had to have practice hours in order to keep my license. Or will I get a job. And so I got a job and it was 10 hours a week. I thought, oh, I haven't been working for 5 years. That's probably going to make me really difficult to employ. No, 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 no. As a nurse practitioner, I was fighting off people to interview me, right? I was like, I better plan like maybe 3 months it'll take me to get a job. No, within a couple weeks, it was like boom, 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 just like I had always remembered it from before. And that is our risk. That's risk capacity that we're talking about, right? So when we understand this as nurses, we understand that we have a really high risk capacity, so we can change our investments to match that too.
Yeah, it is quite a unique field because I mean, even at any point you could have hopped off the trail and probably picked up a travel assignment like wherever you were, and so I mean, that's an incredible opportunity to have. Do you think that because so that period of time was what, about 3 to 5 years that you were out of nursing during that time?
About 5 years.
Okay. And do you think that, because I mean, obviously, if you're on the trail and you're hiking and then you're in South America, your cost of living is a lot less than had you just like taken time off and stayed in the city. Um, how long do you think you would have lasted had you, been in the city living a more traditional lifestyle?
I'm not sure because during that time I bought a house in cash. I bought cars in cash. And so
How many shifts were you doing?
no, this is the thing. So I
No,
did
before.
work a lot. I
Yeah.
did work a lot, but my whole career I have worked full time for 7 years. So this is the thing, like when you plan well, when you know where your money's going, when you know how to get more out of those dollars that you're earning, you can do this too. So I don't know how long I could have lasted, but that is a strategy that I use. Go to cheaper countries. Enjoy life there. Slow travel. I love slow travel. Slow travel, one, is more enriching for me because I get to spend time in a place and make connections and relationships, but also it's cheaper to slow travel. There's all of these techniques that people are using and that I have used to stretch my money further. And so when I came back, I decided I didn't want to live in Seattle anymore. And so that was a whole thing that happened in my life too. And so you never know what's going to happen when you open up the possibilities of life.
Well, and I was going to say the one thing you said there was planning, and I think that's a big thing that people don't do is plan and budget. And even for us at different points in our life, I'm speaking about Jen and I, not me and Josh. I know. Together, he and I don't plan anything, but Jen and I like have talked about that because at different times we haven't been like done well with planning and budgeting, and we feel the negative effects of it. But when we actually do plan and budget, it's a tremendous difference. And like you said, 7 years is a decent amount of time, and if you're being very intentional during that 7 years, I mean, obviously this is the result. So it's encouraging to hear. I got to see if my kids can come on this trail with me now.
Yeah.
Jen won't come. I already know that. She's not interested in that.
She can
5 months.
come stay with us for 5 months.
Jen,
So
yeah, Jen can stay with Nicole, and you and I can go with two of the kids.
So at any point while you're walking for 5 months on this trail, were you thinking to yourself, I really wish I was turning my patients every 2 hours right now?
I love that you asked me that because, okay, so when I left my job, I was working in a community health center as a nurse practitioner, primary care, 2,000 panel patients, and then separately working in vaccine research. So when I left that job and went on the Pacific Crest Trail, it's hard. It's a lot to walk every day 20 to 30 miles and to live outside and just be at the mercy of the elements. There were other hard things that happened too during that trail in my personal life, but I'm going to skip past those and just say one of the things that I would do when I would check in with myself when it was really hard is I would ask myself, I was literally like have a conversation with myself and I would say, so okay, this sucks. This does suck. Like you're hot, you're tired, you're exhausted, you want to lay down, you just want to, you know, die. But would you rather be taking care of patients and listening to problems all day long? And every time I was like, oh no, this is actually way better. I would much
Way
rather
better.
this. At the end, it got close though. It got close because I was out there for 5 months. And at the end, I was like, wow, okay, so I still prefer this, but it's getting closer that I would almost rather be in a clinic right now.
And so I guess, yeah, just overall, what was your favorite part of the most beautiful part of the trail?
Remind me, where do you guys live?
I'm in Northern California.
Okay.
Josh is too far from the
Wisconsin.
Pacific.
Oh gosh.
Josh has no chance.
So I see it in
Josh.
pictures.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm from Ohio. I understand that kind of that yeah. Okay, but
Lake
as a
Michigan's
Northern
close.
Californian, you know some of the really great scenery that is out there, right? My favorite part of the trail. Oh, I would have to say the northern part of Washington State that goes through the North Cascades. I had I had other sections that I just loved, but that part of Washington State is so unspoiled. It's my home state. I'm from Ohio, but I lived in Washington for 15 years. So I felt oh, it's just stunning. Mountains. One night, like the second to the last night that I was hiking, it was a 30-mile day through the mountains, lots of climbs. But I'm like coming to the end of the day and I'm on this ridge line on this mountain, and it's autumn by now. So I start in spring, you finish in autumn. It's autumn. So there's fall colors. The larches are turning to golden yellow. It's just stunningly beautiful. The sun is setting. And as the sun is setting, the moon is rising. And I'm looking at the moon. And when you live outside for 5 months straight, you know what the moon is going to look like. You know that it's going to be a full moon or a new moon. You just know what it was supposed to be a full moon, but it looked like a sliver moon. And I realized here I am in this stunning location witnessing a full lunar eclipse. I mean, it gives me chills just to think about it because it was the most beautiful thing and I was just out there after a 5-month hike seeing that and feeling like I was witnessing a miracle. It was such an amazing experience.
And I will
And
never
even-
know what that's like. But that sounds amazing.
But
You
even
could
then, you
replicate
didn't
it.
miss.
A short hike on a night where you know there's a full lunar eclipse.
Yeah, we can drive to it, Josh.
That
Don't
sounds-
worry.
that's-
Yeah. So that ended, and eventually, after more travels, that unfortunately we don't have time to get into all of them because we'll have to have you back again and just talk to you about all your travels. But from there, I guess what did it look like? Where did you kind of find this way into like your platform and putting all this information out there for everyone?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. So I didn't ever plan to start Nurses Investing for Wealth. This was something that I started when COVID was happening, when I was settled down due to COVID, when I was trying to think, how can I help people? How can I help nurses, nurse practitioners, my nursing colleagues stop this burnout cycle that they're in? Like, stop being abused by these systems, right? Stop getting commodified. And the one thing that I knew I had, the talent that I knew I had was this system that I built for myself, this money system that I built for myself and that I use for myself. And so I started to just put it out there to nurses and say, hey, is this something that you'd like to learn? And the answer was yes. And so it naturally unfolded after that as people started to plug into it, get results. And that's how.
So sorry. But yeah, so with that, I guess then you get started, and like, what did it start looking like? Were you doing coaching? Were you doing courses, or what was the plan there, the system there, I guess, that you had?
Yes. And so what I do is I teach a course that walks people from very beginning to end, that sets them up for financial freedom. The course starts with understanding where you are starting from. I show people, I walk them through a step-by-step series really of where you're starting. First, know where you're starting, because everybody is starting at a different place financially, and based on where you are as a person, you'll take different you'll set up different things at different times. And then I just walk them through a series of stages of how to plug into investing, how to plug into making sure that their cash flow system is set up, and helping them to see when in the future will they be financially independent, when they're able to pull cords, at what stages. By the end, people feel really confident about when they can cut back on work or make a change to their lifestyle, and really clear too about exactly how to manage and track their finances, and making sure that everything's working the way that it needs to be in order to not sacrifice some future comfort or risk providing for their family, risk not being able to provide for their family.
Do you have a magic number that most nurses need to achieve before they can start thinking about cutting back?
So it's not a magic number. It really is dependent on a few different things, as I know you are both aware because I've heard you talk about it. But to recap, like what I talk about in my program is first, like knowing your expenses, knowing what your expenses will be when you don't work. Two totally different things. We already talked about that. Knowing how much you need, no, not just knowing, but having a plan for setting up that saving to cover those expenses. Knowing what income you'll have when you're not working. There's different, you know, different people have different things. But a magic number, as far as being financially free, a lot of people point to multiply your uh, annual income by 25, and then you'll get your how much you need. What is it? Anyway, we go through that. It's like the annual income by 25, and then you get how much you need to have invested. That's one thing, but that's a very generic thing. So we go deeper. We look at the Monte Carlo. Um, Monte Carlo, it's not a risk assessment, but it's Monte Carlo. Do you know Monte Carlo?
Do not. I
Yeah.
will search it right
Anyway,
now.
we
Yeah.
we basically titrate the numbers. There's not just one number for everyone, right? And so what I'm saying is we kind of walk through a series of steps and we titrate the numbers, and a person gets a very specific answer for themselves.
Monte Carlo. So I found it. Risk analysis.
Risk analysis. I was close.
Okay.
Risk assessment.
Well, that's the first time I've heard of that. So I'm just going to read it off real quick. Statistical method used to evaluate potential risks and uncertainties in a project or decision by running multiple simulations with randomly generated input values and not output values, outcomes. I always say that input and output. That's not what I mean.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's all right. That's the first time I've heard of that.
But
It's
so
too
it's,
fancy for me.
I mean, this sounds like it could be something that would benefit anyone at any stage in their career. But is your target audience more the younger nurse, or are you just looking for anybody that's getting ready to change their financial outlook?
So yes, my target audience, this could work for anyone. I work with nurses because I know for a fact it works for nurses, and for nurses on a nursing income and a nursing salary. So that's why I target nurses, and I have successfully worked with nurses from new grad nurse in their early 20s to a nurse that's about ready to retire, because it's so customizable. And to my point again, a person who's about to retire is going to set their system up a lot differently than a new grad nurse, but it's customizable. And so I work with anybody along that, anybody who's a nurse or advanced practice nurse.
I saw that you were commenting on some new IRS rules for 2025, and obviously, yeah. Well, so we're recording today on January 21st. Yesterday was the inauguration. So now Donald Trump's back in office. Do you have any ideas about things that may be coming up, like changes that'll be happening in the, I guess, business and investing world just with these new changes?
I can't predict the future. And I know that that's one of the things that everybody would love for as investors, we would love to be able to predict the future. But what I know for sure is that historically, we know that people who invest carefully according to their risk and invest for the long term. When I say long term, I mean at least 5 years, maybe, and probably longer, then the outcome will be fine. We know that we have data going back for decades, and we've been through a lot as a country, and we'll continue to go through a lot. And so I don't, like I said, I can't predict the future, but I feel personally very confident in my own investing strategy that I'm going to be fine.
Yeah, I mean, I guess nursing is also unique in the sense that, like, it's kind of, it's a career that's recession proof, because obviously nurses can't go anywhere. We always need them. Like during the pandemic, all these jobs shut down. We were making more money than we had been before. So obviously not the best working environment, but it is unique in that. So I guess it's not as susceptible to some of the
So
economic impacts of other careers.
bedside nursing. there's several different
Yeah,
specialties
yeah, sure, right,
that
yeah,
were
yeah.
canceled, like my own. Not a lot of people having
Well,
surgeries during COVID.
right, bedside
Yeah,
nursing.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, but I mean, there's that option too, and it's like at the time, like I don't know how it works with CRNAs, but worst case scenario, like if you had to go back and get an ICU job,
I would not. I only
you
move forward. I don't move backwards.
but if you had to, you could have, and they were throwing money at people to work in the ICU during that COVID period. So there were always options there for nursing. So that's what I'm saying. So Josh, thank you, but
There were options. Yes, yes. Thank you.
And I get your point, which is that we have a safety net, right? It's not that we're going to experience financial ruin if things take a turn. And so I love that for us as nurses, and it allows us to be a lot more risk tolerant when we're investing too.
what types of what types of markets are you investing in?
I invest in stocks and bonds, and that is pretty much it.
And is that
Do you do specific stocks, or is it more like bigger S&P 500, or was it ETFs? And
Me
that's my
personally,
stock knowledge. I don't know anything else.
yeah, that's good. You did good.
Hey,
Me personally, I invest in, I'll tell you my portfolio because that's pretty simple. And I also am going to say first that there's a disclaimer that just because I do it doesn't mean other people should do it without researching for themselves. Okay. That's what I want to teach you. But what I do is I have a total stock market fund, an international fund. These are index funds. I use ETFs. I invest with Vanguard. I have a tax exempt bond fund, and I invest in US treasuries. Is that it? Oh, and I also have an ESG, environmental, social, and governance fund.
and I guess since I don't know what your work format is like now, if you're 1099 or what you are, but if you are in a more flexible nursing role, you're not going to get that 401k match from your company like you would if you're a full-time nurse. So how do you decide how much you're going to allocate to this type of investing?
That is variable and changeable, and it depends on how much extra I have at the end of the month. And so I adjust it. And that's part of what I have built out for myself, is so I can quickly and easily see what that amount is. And I will put that, me personally, I put that into my Roth IRA. I don't have a job anymore. I quit. I resigned just very recently. So I'm back to unemployed, and I'm planning to remain unemployed. And so I don't have a 403B anymore, but I did, and I maxed that out. And I would use an IRA, a 403b, an HSA, health savings account would be an account that I would consider now that I'm not employed and not insured. And that's what I would use. If people had other life circumstances, then I would make other recommendations too.
I know tax rates are different for passive income. So now all 100% of your income would be considered passive. So what advantages are you seeing with that, and what I don't know how I'm trying to get around to the fact that I think, don't you pay zero taxes on passive income until you hit like 40 grand or something?
I love that you're asking me these questions because it's not something I have a chance to talk about all that often. So thank you for giving me this opportunity. Um, One, I have a cheat sheet that tells me the numbers because I can't keep all of these numbers in my head. So yeah, let's go with 40,000 right now, but no one quote us on this. If you find out that we're not accurate, that it's not completely accurate, no one quote us on this. Your point is well taken that when you work for income, you start paying taxes at over $12,000 and you pay pay a high tax rate. When you don't work for income and your investments make income, you don't pay tax until after a much higher number than 12,000. We think it could be 40,000, but we would need a check. Um, and so this is like the most crazy wild thing, isn't it? That money that we do not work to earn, we don't have to pay very much tax on it. Money that we do not work to earn, we don't have to pay very much tax on it. This is how rich people get richer. This is why nurses need to know this, because we need to make money that we don't work to earn and pay less tax. For me, now that I'm not working, one, it's a whole nother game that you play when you don't work, because one of the for me, what game I play is, okay, so let me back up and say, first of all, when you don't work, you spend less. We already talked about that. It's crazy. I don't know why exactly that is, but that's just how it works out. Probably you're not commuting, you're not buying lunch, you're not treating yourself after, you don't feel obligated to go out for dinner, all those things, whatever. Second of all, you're probably not going to be dumping a bunch of your money into retirement plans. And so, which is, that's kind of a side discussion. The point here is that when you don't work, you pay less, you spend less money. And so you start playing a game of, well, how can I pay zero tax? And now what I'll do is I have money in retirement accounts that I will move over to Roths, to my Roth, because now I'm going to be in a very low tax bracket and I will pay almost no tax on that money when I move it over. I will keep myself under a specific threshold so that I can remain in a lower tax bracket than when I work. And so that's another way that not working saves you money.
Sorry, I was trying to Google what the passive income tax rate was over here, and apparently not a lot of people make a ton of passive income, because I don't see any sheets or spreadsheets or anything over
Google
here.
Google capital gains and capital gains tax. That'll break it up.
So in the meantime, while he's looking for that, you've also taken the next step to avoid taxes and moved out of the country to New Zealand. So how, and how did you pick New Zealand, and what's that looking like now for investing? Does that change anything with your investments in terms of, your strategy, or I guess your tax liability? Because you're still a U.S. citizen, I'm assuming.
Yes, you have to pay money to renounce to not be a US citizen. So I'm not going to do that. It's also where my family lives. So I'm planning to return. I have a house in the US. So I still have strong roots in the US. Yes. So now taxes are complicated for me. I'm going to just say that. How did it happen? Let me answer the easy question first. How did I end up in New Zealand? New Zealand has been something that I've come and gone to since I was a new grad nurse. I worked as a nurse here when I was 22 years old. It was one of my first jobs. I've been back and forth since. I'm a permanent resident in New Zealand, and I have been for a long time. And that's how that happened. Taxes are complicated. The short and easy answer is there's a foreign earned income tax, not credit, So basically, I pay taxes more in New Zealand than I do in the US when I stay in New Zealand longer, 6 months out of the year or longer. If I stay in the US 6 months out of the year or longer, then I pay US taxes. The US
Okay.
is
That
a
sounds like
jerk.
this. This sounds like the same situation as Puerto Rico, because if you live there more than 6 months, you pay their rates.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that
Yeah.
as a US territory. That's interesting.
Yep. And I think it's 4% across the board for Puerto Rico.
Do you
So
do you live there sometimes?
not yet.
Oh, I
You're
see you're
not,
in research
you're
phase.
not going
and
to Puerto
and
Rico either, dude.
my
Jo-
wife is not gonna let that happen until
Josh,
she sees the beaches. We've never been there, so I just got to show her
that's
a ton
true.
of
That's
beach
true.
pictures.
If you ever want to
Oh.
find Josh, he will be in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and that's where you can find him.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
I like to
If
give
I'm
Josh a hard
there,
time.
I'm gonna find you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I don't know if passive income and long-term capital gains are taxed the same, but I did find that long-term capital gains rate is 0% until 47,000 single and 94,000 if you're married.
There you go. That's crazy.
It's a lot of money to not get taxed. So just
So all you
work on
need
that
to
passive
do,
income.
exactly. That's all you need to do is you just need to get $97,000 saved up and pass it in your capital gains, right? Easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's
Piece
a
of cake. No, I'm just kidding.
well, and that's a decent amount of money. Like
That's a lot. Yeah.
$97,000 tax free. That's all your money that you're going to get. I mean, you could, especially like you mentioned, if you go for like the slow living. We know somebody that moved to Bali, and from what I understand, Bali is extremely cheap, and you could be living pretty well for $97,000 a year. So now I have a goal.
Yes.
I'll
Yes.
see
And
how-
this is where I love seeing your brain at, because there are, once you start thinking about it and once you start doing it, you meet other people who are doing it, and it seems that much more doable too.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and you mentioned earlier, like this is what the rich are doing, and you know, I always mention this whole thing about Donald Trump. Like everybody was very upset about him paying $700 in taxes, and it's like I don't know how he did it, but he obviously didn't go and do his taxes on TurboTax. He has lawyers and everybody that are like doing his accounting and his taxes for him and using all these different loopholes. So it's like the more we learn about it, the more we can implement it and take advantage of it in our own lives as well. And that's what we're all about.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
To pay less in taxes than Trump does.
Yeah, so that we can all be part of the problem.
Well, yeah.
I mean,
mean,
creating jobs. We just recently hired somebody, so that you can't avoid all taxes. You can just avoid some of them.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
we'd like to avoid as much as possible, but
Is that why you're in New Zealand right now? If we're being transparent. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, it
Just
plays
kidding. We don't have to
in.
go
I'll
there.
say
We don't have
that.
to go there.
Yeah, I'll just say it plays in. There's lots of reasons. New Zealand's just a very nice place to live. It's very relaxed. It's very beautiful. I just love it here. So that's the main reason. But then going back to the US and being part of the chaos there, and whew, it's a lot.
Is that because I've heard? So my wife is Polish, and all of her family, not all of it, but most of her family, still in Poland. And when they think of Americans, they think of hardworking. So you think that's just part of the culture that we can't get away from as Americans? You just work hard, play hard type situation? Because I know there's a lot of European countries that are just relaxed and kind of go with the flow. Is that what you're experiencing over there? And do you think America is just gonna be like that forever?
Oh my goodness. You are really really like pushing my buttons, I think.
Oh no.
I'm going to just say that in the US, we have all been tricked. We have all been tricked to believing that we must work hard. We must climb a corporate ladder. We must do these things for a pretty low income, considering that the people at the top are actually the ones that are getting the money, and we're all part of that game. We're all just basically playing a game to make billionaires more billionaires. And so, yes, I believe that your wife is onto something. Um, and it definitely contributes to my desire to try to exit the US working economy.
Well, and I think you mentioned healthcare workers and nurses specifically being a commodity, and I think that's the system that's been generated in the U.S. just in general with workers is just this. You go through high school, you go to college, which is just becoming more and more expensive, and then you get into the workforce. You work until you're 65, you're retired. It's this kind of like rat race or whatever that we're all being taught to believe in. And I'm not going to like put my tinfoil hat on and get into all the conspiracies of it, but it does seem like there's like a bigger plan in place that's being run by people higher up. It is just something that people seem to have accepted in the United States that other countries seem to not have, going on. So I'm with you on a lot of this stuff because yeah, it's like walking the trail, like walking the Pacific Crest Trail. Like I'm 38 years old. That's something I've always been interested in, but one way or the other, life kind of keeps me from doing it. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I might not see my family for 5 months, but
Jennifer, so he's talking about, so Jen is his wife, that's my sister, so that part of her like ultimate goal is to move to Europe and live a more traditional lifestyle. I feel like I don't know if I would want that or not. I don't know, we'll see.
yeah, I mean, but I don't
I
know.
would, I think I would, but I don't know. I just don't know what it's like, so it's hard, it's the unknown. I don't know.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
sounds great though. It does sound great.
it does sound
It,
nice.
It sounds so nice.
it would be I would just say, it makes sense that you're like, I don't know if I would want that. You don't have to know if you want that. What you do is you go spend a month over there and have an amazing holiday and then come back and live your life and see what you like after that. Don't make any, when I didn't decide I'm going to live in New Zealand permanently, I lived here for 2 years. I went back to Seattle. I came back, went back. It happens. Life unfolds over time. So just do something small that you think you might be interested in and see where it takes you.
It's a great point. That's kind of that's the theme of your whole platform, is because that's, yeah, you didn't know you were going to be retired for 5 years. You just take it one day, 1 month at a time.
But that's also very un-American, just because it's like everybody wants everything, like
Nobody has patience here.
yeah. Well, and like so, who knows? Like some of like the feeling of like I might be bored is just probably rooted in the fact that this is a lifestyle that we've known and that we've been taught to know and accept. So I don't know. There's definitely more out there, but
And the feeling, I love that you brought boredom up because that tells me that that's like a thing that you're worried about as potentially being bored. And that's really, really interesting. The other things that commonly come up when I talk with people is the fear of sacrificing some future, right? So like maybe running out of money. For me, because of the kind of work I do, people worry about not having enough or not being able to provide for their family. And even though those things are real worries and real concerns, we don't start there, right? Like we're not going to start with saying like, well, I'm going to throw all the eggs in the basket and if I run out, I run out. No, no, no. We just like move towards it carefully. And you're right that like acknowledging some of those things that are in our heads of what holds us back lets us kind of be more in touch with what we talked about earlier, what we want to spend our money on and what we want to get out of life.
and now because now that you're out of nursing, you're living in New Zealand. Are you making any money from your coaching and your platform, or making enough to kind of sustain you right now, or are you still living off all the savings and planning and all that you did to set yourself up?
So this is really fresh. I only put in my resignation on the 6th of January, so it's really fresh. But I didn't really have to think about it too hard because the system that I have set up, I know exactly how my money's going to flow without making any extra income. My business, I don't really make income from my business. I know that sounds crazy. I know people are going to be like, oh my God, well, why do you do it? I do it because boredom, bringing it back to boredom. I started this business out of boredom. I was in COVID territory. I was like, how can I help? I do it because I wanted to help people. I do it because I love learning new things. I love learning, how do you set up a business? How do you deliver a business? I love that. And so my business generates some income, but everything it generates, I just put it right back into the business. So does it need to generate income long term for me to survive? No. Does that mean that I will continue doing it forever? Maybe not. I don't know. I don't have a strong, I love doing it. I love helping other nurses and advanced practice nurses, but I don't like have a financial dependence on it.
Is the service, is it like for your clients, does a certain, like if somebody wanted to sign up with your program, what does that look like? Is it like,
Yeah.
does it cost money?
Yes. Yeah. And
Okay.
so yes.
So it's
Um,
not, okay.
it's not free at all, and people invest in the course, they invest in getting my help, and they invest in themselves. And so people who are interested in that, they can go to my website at learn.nursesinvesting.com, where I have a free training on there, and at the end of that I walk you through exactly what is inside of my program, Ultimate Nurse Investing, and tell you more about the different, really there's 5 stages. I tell you more about the 5 stages that you go through to get to this point where I am. And then I tell you the offer, or I tell you about how to get into that program. And then if people aren't interested in that, there are other ways to work with me too that I tell people about down the road: personalized private coaching, one-on-one calls, community group, probably other things too.
Yeah.
Just check out the website and
Yeah.
then you
Yeah,
find out.
that's the best place to start, is to check out the website, get the training video, watch the training video, which a lot of people don't do, and it's such um, a missed opportunity when you don't watch the video, because you're not taking that next step to start setting yourself up, right? But yeah, go to the website, watch the video, and then think about if you want help, how you want help.
All right, I think we're gonna jump into the final 5. So same 5 questions we ask everybody. So first one is, what's a top financial resource that you found? Where do you educate yourself?
The internet. The internet has all the information. Just like
Yeah.
you showed us, you walked us through it on this call, Josh. Let me see
True.
what the capital gains tax rate is. You know, the internet can tell us everything. And I use the internet all the time. And nowadays I use Chat GPT as well. So I've actually built my own robot recently to help people do their own stock research, and people inside of my program use that. So those are the things that I use. I use the internet, Chat GPT, and AI.
Well, I know earlier you said you wouldn't necessarily change anything about the way you did things, but if you could give some advice to yourself as a new grad, what would that be?
Yes, I actually thought about this before getting on this call with you, because I know you asked these questions, and I was like,
You're
I
better
want to
than
be
Jen.
prepared.
You're better than Jen. My own wife, we were doing our roundtable. We're like, we're going to ask you the final 5. She's like, what is the final 5? I was like, you know what?
Yes, I love it.
Not
I think
supportive.
it's so good that you do it though, because it's like, let me bring it back to what's really important. For me, the thing I would have wanted myself to know 20 plus years ago when I was becoming a nurse is that nursing as a career is not sustainable until you're 65. You need to be set up to retire early. We don't have a safety net in our career. If something happens to us, we're scapegoated, we're assaulted, we're injured at work, or we just burn out and can't do it. We need to be prepared. And so as a 20-year-old, if I would have been told that, I think my life would have been like a little bit shaken up to be like, what? I'm going into this career field that's meant to be until I'm 65, but not gonna be possible. So, yeah.
Well, and I think it used to be more sustainable to 65. Like a lot of the people that are now retiring have come through these last maybe 10. I feel like the time I got into nursing in like 2011, and right when I was getting in, things were still pretty okay. But in this amount of time that I've been in it, I've just seen, hospitals getting busier and administration getting worse. So it's definitely changed. Before, having a 40-year career in nursing was more, I think, sustainable than it is now. So yeah, to your point, especially if you're a new grad now, you need to know that.
All right. What excites you about the next 12 months?
Oh, I'm so excited for the next 12 months because I don't have a job anymore, which means I can do anything I want. And probably I'm going to do so many things. Yeah, I'm planning to really learn, invest in myself, invest in my own learning, working with coaches who can teach me things about marketing, teach me things about being a better coach to my students, developing my program so that people can get even quicker results. I have probably lots of plans to travel. That's always on my list. Um,
I
yeah,
love how you said that. You're just like, I probably have plans to travel. You're like, the next 12 months is so open. That's great.
yeah,
Yeah. Maybe you could check out Puerto Rico for us.
Yeah,
I know.
yeah.
That's on
Take
the
some
list, but
pictures.
it should be. It should be.
Yeah, we're gonna make a list for you. We're gonna be like, hey, we can't go do this. So I mean,
We don't. Yeah.
yeah, normally I'm able to be a little more mobile, but we have a baby coming in about 2 months, so it's like I'm
Oh,
accepting the fact that I'm gonna be stuck for a while.
congratulations. That's
Yeah.
exciting for you. Yeah, well, let's make a list. And, as long as I have some say in it, I'll do my best.
All right. I like that. So the fourth question is, how do you define success?
Success for me is living life to my values. I have two North Star values, and after this talk, it won't come as a surprise to either of you. Adventure and independence are my two North Star values. So when I feel like I'm living my best life, it's because I'm living life full of adventure and full of being able to do what I want, when I want, how I want, with who I want, independence. And so that's the definition of success to me.
All righty. Last one is, what is the biggest financial mistake you've ever made, and what did you learn from it?
I have made a big financial mistake, and it cost me several $100,000. And it was working with a financial advisor. I talk about it in detail in many places, but I'll just keep this brief and say that that person didn't scam me. They didn't rip me off. They did everything right, but I was just too naive to know how to do my own investing and didn't know that they were investing me in things that were costing me a lot of money. And yeah, it led me to lose out on several $100,000 in returns because I had to pay large fees for their services and large fees for the investment types.
I guess, what could you have done to avoid that for somebody now looking at that type of thing?
Learn how to do my own investing from the start. I believed that, well, I wasn't raised in a wealthy family. I didn't know how to invest. I didn't know I didn't know anything about anything. And I believed that the only way I would be able to invest was with the help of an expert. And now I realize that was wrong. So I hired an expert. I trusted that expert. They did a good enough job for what they were doing, but the problem was is I didn't know what we were talking about. I didn't know what he was telling me. I would ask him questions. I couldn't understand his answers back. And so it led me to make decisions that I didn't understand, and that was a mistake. And so what I would do now is I would learn how to do my own investing so that I know more accurately when I need the help of an expert, and if I need the help of an expert, how to communicate with them what I need and how to hold them accountable.
I have my own soapbox about financial planners also. I will never use one again. And it's for a very similar reason to you. I don't like saying it publicly because I don't want to go at anybody's character, because they're doing what they're supposed to do. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if anybody listening wants to know more specifically why I do not, or why Angel does not, reach out directly, because I won't talk about anybody's character, but I'll tell you why I will never use one again.
Yeah, and I mean maybe we'll have to talk about it offline because I mean it, like you said, it is their job. They are doing their job the way that it's set up to do, which is why I also say they did everything right. I was the one at fault because I bought into a system that is built to take advantage of the people that it serves, or to, it's not built to take advantage of them, it's built to make money off the people that they serve, which is normal. It's normal. That's how businesses usually work, especially businesses that are at the top of the income earning ladder in the US.
Well, this has been great, and thank you for joining us from tomorrow in New Zealand. And yeah, where can people find you?
Oh, this has been great. You have asked me so many fun questions, and it's been really, really nice to be able to talk about things that I don't usually get to talk about, and to meet both of you and chat with you in real life and not just listen to your voices in my ears in the podcast, which I will continue listening to because you're doing such a great job. People can find me at on Instagram at Nurses Investing for Wealth. I love it when, if you're going to message me there, do it and send me your number one money question. I love like seeing if I can just help you in a short, brief snippet. So do that. Or if you want to take my training, which, Josh, I do break down how I lost that $300,000 and why financial advisors are not needed inside of that training. I definitely recommend it. People start there, and you can get it at learn.nursesinvesting.com.
Well, I hope we run into you somewhere around the world. I'm in Napa, so come on through, have some wine. Josh is in Green Bay, as you know, and he will always be in Green Bay.
No reason to show up here. I'll meet you in Napa.
Hey, you guys have Lambo.
Wisconsin is cool too. It's very green, rolling hills. It's got the crane colony.
Josh didn't even know that.
What is that? No, I love it here. I like to make fun of myself a lot, but I love it here actually.
And I actually love Wisconsin too. I would spend a good amount of time there every year if we will at some point there in Europe. So
yes, I'm excited for you. I'm excited for your adventures. And if you are in New Zealand, let me know.
Next year.
I don't see that happening, but yes, we will.
Is it close to Poland?
Yeah, so close.
That's definitely not the case.
Yeah.